Hello there everybody. I am your host Nick Hilton, one of a team of wonderful consultants at INFuse Data Solutions. You might recognise me from the INFuse Business Intelligence blog series, Infused with Data, where we have a regular introduction or guide to different topics in the Microsoft Business Intelligence world. Today though, we're going to try something new, and that is a webinar. The topic for this session is the exciting Microsoft Fabric Analytics platform that has recently released. We want to give you an introduction to this new service today in a way which cuts through the technical jargon and just gets to the basics of what it is, why it's different, and what makes it a compelling value proposition for anyone who wants to leverage their data. We're going to do that by visiting three main areas. First, we'll ask what is Fabric and why is it different from Azure or other cloud platforms. Then we'll take a look through the core concepts and how it works. Then we'll do a quick demo to show how easy it is to take some existing data, load it in and start getting insights. On your screens you will see two things, the main presentation, and then to the right of that there'll be a chat. Please feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar. If there's something that the team can't answer though, we'll just get back to you as soon as possible. Right, let's dive right in. So, up until now, if you wanted to build an analytics platform, you needed either an on-premise solution or a cloud computing platform like Azure or AWS. You're going to be looking at ingesting data, storing it, transforming it, analyzing it, and then producing visuals or automations. But to do that, you have to figure out which of the many products you need before you can even get started. Are you going to be loading data? Then let's get Data Factory. Oh, then we need to store it. Let's get Synapse Data Warehouse or SQL databases. We need to govern it. Let's get Purview. And that's just to get started. Going in any new exciting directions like to make use of AI machine learning, that means another separate product being added to the mix. And that isn't to denigrate Azure in any way, it's extremely powerful and can do pretty much anything you might need cloud computing to do. But when it comes down to it, that huge range of separate products, that flexibility, it's much more complicated than something which provides them all in one place for you. Now, each of these products has different user experiences, and most have steep learning curves as well. Anyone new to Azure is going to need to not just select the products they need, but they're then going to need to learn how to use them as well. And each product requires some expertise to really take advantage of them, and most of that knowledge doesn't transfer from one product to the other. And then, just as you thought you'd mastered one product, you find that you need to link them all together to make use of them, and you have to make sure you're using link services to configure that interaction. Finally, you find that you need to pay separately for each one. Behind the scenes, you are renting whole areas of machines reserved for a certain level of usage within that specific product. This model is called Platform as a Service, which is unlike Fabric's Software as a Service, which we'll learn about in a bit. Ultimately, all of these complexities make traditional cloud computing quite expensive to make use of, whether that's in direct cost or in time spent developing the platform. But we want to get value from our data as soon as possible and in a cost-effective way. And that is where Microsoft Fabric comes in. If the problem we have can be put as simply as too many different products with too many different experiences, the Microsoft solution to that is just as simple. Why not put them all in one place with one user interface? Well, that's exactly what they've done for data analytics. The vast majority of data platforms built in Azure use a small number of the available products, generally Data Factory for ingestion and transformation, and Synapse for data analysis and data warehousing. After that, the data could be connected to Power BI for reporting. And this is the core of what Fabric is. It's a single service that has everything you need in one place for almost every data-based project you would want to build, whether that's storage, analysis, data science, or real-time streaming analytics. Being part of one service brings them all in line with one consistent user interface throughout, which makes each section familiar. And while it has the capability for very advanced data activities, it's fundamentally designed to be accessible and easy to use for anyone who might need to access data, whatever their role is. Not only that, but it ties in some of the extra features like governance, security, and monitoring into its default offering from the minute you press go. A big part of what makes this possible is Fabric's storage foundation with OneLake. OneLake is the default storage solution in Fabric, and it's where everything goes, unless you specify otherwise. One storage account for every table, every image, every lakehouse, every data warehouse for all of your projects, whether it's sales, finance, operations, whatever it is. And having this storage capacity underlying Fabric from one end to the other, it's possible to tie all of the services together and remove the issues around provisioning storage and connecting that to each service. Beyond easier development, OneLake's functionality and benefits come down to three main areas. Firstly, there's one storage account to manage and govern. Now you can easily manage access, govern, manage your data in one place across everything you do. Next, there's the fact that this is storage which can handle any size and type of data, whether you're storing billions of rows of data in the petabytes, and whether that's images, tables, PDF documents, whatever it is, it can all go in here. And finally, it can connect to your existing cloud storage in something like Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud. So you can immediately access all your existing data by setting up a link, and voila, it's magically treated as if it exists within your Fabric OneLake. It's ready for use in exactly the same way you would with data that's actually in Fabric. Very cool technology. So that's Fabric. It is an all-in-one, complete analytics platform in a box. Everything that you are likely to need is unified in one place, and if you need to do anything else, the link to other cloud platforms is built in. As we mentioned, with Azure you're essentially renting a platform which then run what you want in compartments, and that with that comes costs. Fabric, on the other hand, is software as a service, and not only is it all billed as one product, but it's billed pay-as-you-go as well. So even outside of your trial, you could run some tests, have a play, and then pause your capacity and have just a cost of pennies. With everything being under one roof, the user interface has been streamlined and simplified so that anyone can start making use of the data platform as they see it, and we'll go into that a little bit on the next slide. Now, everything being in one place also enables two new exciting experiences. The first is Data Activator, which lets your data and the pipelines controlling that data to become triggers for automations and data delivery. For example, as a sales alert to an account manager if a customer misses payments, or warnings to a Teams channel when a factory machine exceeds certain thresholds. These triggers can be set up from anywhere, from the data load to being built from visualizations in Power BI, and they can be produced as many times as you want per second. You could have multiple alerts going off every second if it needed to. This is a very quick overview for what's a very exciting new product, and I'll be doing a blog post about that very soon. Then there's a Microsoft 365 Copilot, and that transforms how we work by leveraging large language models and other AI tools that interact and learn with your organizational data. It's probably important that I clarify here, by the way, that it's all secure within your environment, and your data isn't being extracted in any way to train models or anything like that. So Copilot works alongside you. For example, in Word, Copilot can easily write an entirely new document, like a business proposal, using content from your existing files and emails and conversations. Or in Outlook, based on the content you select, Copilot could compose an email reply for you in your style. Or in PowerPoint, you can transform your written content into a visually beautiful presentation. And with Fabric supporting the data backend, Copilot can be integrated throughout it all, so you could add figures in that context right from your database, right from the sales table with the click of a button, and it could update live. Or even while using chat in Microsoft Teams, it could help you catch up on something you've missed and answer questions from your data warehouse at the same time, bringing together information from multiple sources to bring you up to speed. We don't have nearly enough time to go into the innovations brought by AI, that's a whole webinar or a book to itself. But don't underestimate the immense change artificial intelligence is going to bring. It's not a fad, make use of it. Fabric is a platform which will make sure you're ready to do that. Now, one of the great things about Microsoft Fabric is that for those seasoned in Power BI, the transition is going to feel seamless. Power BI is essentially the foundation that Microsoft Fabric has been built around. So the interface is exactly the same, and accessing reports and things like databases all happens within a workspace. So for example, you might have sales reporting workspace with all the storage reporting pipelines in there if you wanted them to be. Operational reporting with all their artifacts, finance reporting, you see what I mean? Everything is nice and separated neatly. And if you're using Power BI already, then that's what you're probably already doing for your reports. So it builds on that in a really nice way. If you live in the data engineering world, for example, and you're migrating from something like Data Factory or Azure Synapse, this is going to be a bit of a fresh adventure, and you're going to have some new interfaces to learn. Well, some is probably overselling it. There's one interface to learn, and it's simple and it's easy to figure out. As I said, it's built outwards from the existing Power BI experience, and that experience is made to be accessible, and it's for anyone, whether they're considered technically proficient or not. Now, as I mentioned before, one of the challenges you have with the traditional cloud computing platforms is the intricate process of interconnecting all services. But more than that, you have to learn these services. You have to learn a diverse range of totally different tools to actually make use of them. And not just make use of them, to take advantage of them. They can be quite difficult and be quite a hard learning curve. Like, you need to be adept at using Azure Synapse Analytics, for example. But then you could need to use something in Data Factory, and then you can have a challenge navigating that because it's totally different. Same with pipelines and storage. Everything is its own self-contained thing. Yes, of course, there's some similarities and alignment between them. These are fantastic tools. I don't want to denigrate them at all, but they do have a much more of a learning curve to make use of them. Right, that is Microsoft Fabric. Now, before we jump into the demo, let's have a quick summary of what we've looked at. So up until now, if you wanted to build a data analytics platform, you would have to use a cloud computing provider like Azure or AWS. Within those services, you would have to select from the many products the ones that you needed. You would then have to learn them individually, with each of them being quite complex to themselves, and then you'd have to tie them all together. This means that there's a steep learning curve, that it's quite expensive, and that it's going to be quite a while before you get any return on your investment. Enter Microsoft Fabric. Microsoft Fabric, rather than many products, is just the ones that you need. It is one product, and because of that, it is all tied together in one experience with a streamlined and accessible interface. Not only is this something for your data engineers and your data professionals to be tinkering away with, but it's also somewhere where your users who just need to go in and get a quick bit of information or something from Power BI, something they can do really easily. Then is the benefit that it's also scalable and future-proof. You could be loading a couple of spreadsheets today, but in a year's time you could be processing billions of rows and building an entire digital business powered by AI, all from Microsoft Fabric. And last but not least, it is cost effective. As we mentioned before, it is pay as you go and you only pay for the time used. If you don't want to pay that much, you can do some quick transformations and then pause the runtime. Right, so in today's demo, we're going to be playing the role of a data analyst at a company that already uses Power BI connected to an on-premise SQL server. They found that moving to Fabric will bring costs down. They want to get rid of the on-premise solution anyway, and it makes sense as a choice for the next 10 to 20 years because it will be ready to support anything they need in that time. They've started the free Fabric trial that's available to everyone, and they want to get some data in from their SQL server and into a report as a test. They also want to do that quite quickly. Before we jump into the demo, let's cover some core concepts. For all we talk about data factories, Synapse warehouses and OneLakes, these are just the name for the underlying technologies, but what we deal with instead is the individual components like the data warehouse itself or the actual pipeline orchestrating your load process. There are loads of components, but as I'm going to give a specific demo today where we only have to look at a few, we're just going to look at the most important ones for now. So, starting with storage, first we have a lakehouse. This is a storage location which can handle any size and any type of data. Non-tabular data like images or videos or anything else, that all goes in here. And generally for normal data with tables, this is where you'd put the raw extract before loading the cleaned version to your data warehouse. Although you could just dump all your data into your lakehouse and connect to Power BI from there. It would work if you wanted to. That then brings us to the SQL Data Warehouse. This is a structured data store that functions exactly like you'd see in something like SQL Server with SQL Server Management Studio. There's views, there's stored procedures, queries, everything you'd expect and everything you'd need. Additionally, it can also be used to create Power BI models for Power BI to connect to directly, rather than storing it in a Power BI file. That gives you more options for data management and security that didn't exist before. And finally, there's the KQL database, which is the final type of storage. This is specifically used for streaming data. Next, let's look at the main functions for extracting, transforming, and loading data. First, let's look at a data flow. A data flow in Microsoft Fabric is a way of getting, transforming, and loading data from different sources and into different destinations. Everything is done through a graphical interface called the Power Query Editor, which exists in Power BI as well, which lets you see the data and the steps you're applying to it. It's very simple to use, but it's amazingly versatile and complex beneath the hood. You can even use a scripting language called M to write custom experiences for your data transformations. Data flows are reusable as well, so they become a part of the load process that you schedule in to run over and over again if you want them to. Next, there are data pipelines. Data pipelines are useful for the same things as Power Query. You can use them to copy data from one location to another. You can transform it using scripts or stored procedures alongside many other tools, and then you can put it in a destination. On top of that, pipelines are our main tool for orchestrating the pipeline from one end to another. With these, you can say this data flow happens at this time, and then this happens when the next step is run. Or if it all fails, then send a message to Teams and run this instead. This is where that logic is all laid out. It's a literal pipeline. Then there are notebooks. The notebook functionality in Microsoft Fabric is a feature that lets you create, edit and run code in different languages like Python, Spark, SQL or R. You can use these notebooks to perform data analysis, data science, data engineering, machine learning. You can even visualize your data. You can do pretty much everything that is available in the rest of the whole Fabric toolset outside of a few small things like Data Activator. This functionality really opens up Fabric to be used in pretty much any way that you would want it to. Right, so here we are. Welcome to the demo. This is INFuse Data Solutions Power BI service. We've just come to app.powerbi.com and I've created a workspace called Webinar. First thing we're going to do is we're going to say, right, we want to create some storage. What is the tool set we need to do that? Probably data engineering. Let's make a lake house. Let's call the lake house data load. Let's create that. So on top of one lake now, a lake house has been made, and this is where we can dump our initial data. Okay, so get data, we're then going to start a data flow. Great, here we are. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to say load from SQL. Naming that is going to save us a lot of pain figuring out things later. We are then going to get from SQL Server, should I do straight away. The one thing that I'm not going to show you today is setting up an on-premises data gateway. That is something that I have set up previously. It should only take a few minutes. I have the server there and I know that it is operational DB. Fantastic. Click next. It should just take a few seconds. Brilliant. Let's take a look at this first, make sure it's what we want. Great, great. This looks really good. And what helps is that obviously I know that this data is pretty much perfect. This is where you do some transformations if you needed to. For example, we're just going to clean that up from a date time into a date. We make sure it's going to the lake house that we've just made, and then we'll publish that. As it publishes, we'll get brought back into our workspace. As you can see, it creates a load of things from itself. Like, don't worry about these. It'd be great if we can filter them out, but for now, let's not worry about that. That's going to start running in the background. Next, let's head over to our lake house. While that's running, we can get our client data that we're going to pull in from an Excel file. Really easy, this one. Let's go to Files, Upload, Upload Files. I'm going to do that. I think we're going to grab a CSV today. We're going to click Upload. Bang. Fantastic. There you go. To make the next step even easier, so we don't have to connect to Excel, what we're going to do is we are going to load this straight to a table. We're going to, actually that's a good name. New client data, but tidied up a bit if it'll let us. Excellent. Now, it is going to do that on its own logic, so we're going to probably check in a minute to make sure that that's right and that it's not giving us something totally crazy. Excellent. Here is our data, and here is our client data. Great. Looks really good. So the next thing we're going to do is create a warehouse, a data warehouse. We're going to call that final warehouse. Why not? Super imaginative. That's going to take a few seconds to create. That's great. So again, this is where our structured data is going to sit. It's where we're going to use SQL, it's where we're going to have views, stored procedures, all that kind of stuff. Excellent. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the data that we have in our lake house. I know in this exact scenario the data is going to be exactly the same, but loading it into the data warehouse is where we want it to be for making use of it in Power BI. So we're going to go get data, more. I really think lake houses and that kind of stuff should be on the front page, but they're not. So lake house in that fact table was where our data is currently sat. We've taken it from SQL Server, we've put it in our lake house, and now we're putting it in our data warehouse. So we can see our workspace, we can see our folder, data load. I'm not missing anything, am I? Here we go. There, fantastic. We're actually going to take both of them in one go. Why create two data flows when you can do it with one? Fantastic. Again, we know that this is all perfectly fine. Normally you'd spend hours combing through it, making sure and doing everything that you need to do. Everything is followed through. It's all in great format. Publish. And that's going to wear away. That's before it's going to create more and more artifacts, but we can see that this is all coming together. I forgot to name it, didn't I? Oh well, we'll do that in a minute. We'll make sure that it's distinct from the initial data load. This is going to be called load to data warehouse. Excellent. Now that appears to be done. That has now loaded into our warehouse. Let's have a look. We need to find final warehouse. Let's see. Hopefully we're going to see our tables. There we go. They're appearing now. And excellent. Oh, the tables are right there. So you can see how long it's taken to execute the query. If you want to have a high level of performance, there's always higher tiers in the pricing model to look at. But yeah, that's fantastic. We've got all our data, fact table, new client. Excellent. So the next thing that we want to do is visualize the data. We may as well have a look at that now, and then I'll quickly show you pipelines at the end to orchestrate it all and tie it into one go. So like I said, in Fabric, there's this inbuilt connection between data warehousing and Power BI. You can build the model for Power BI here and then just virtually connect to it from a Power BI file, or just create it from here. So we're going to do this. For anybody familiar with the Power BI experience, then this is going to be very familiar. We're going to say there's a relationship between, that's what I'm looking for, client ID to client ID. So we're going to say that we've got this relationship between the two columns. I'm going to say it's one to many, so one in the client data, many in the fact table. Confirm. Fantastic, just like in Power BI. So what we can do immediately is just say new report. This is going to open up the Microsoft Fabrics, the Power BI side of things, sorry. And here we are, straight into Power BI. The data model exists. We've taken our data from our SQL Server on-premise. We've supplemented that with some new data. We have modeled that, we've brought it into Power BI, and now we can finally visualize it. Now let's make a quick visualization of average rating by, let's go with the client, so company rating, let's make this an average, let's make it that. Now let's add a data label. We're not here to teach you how to use Power BI. We're just showing how we've immediately gone from how having our data in the on-premise, and now we're all the way through to finding out what the average rating is per customer. We've supplemented it with Excel. Fantastic. Let's go back to the workspace and we can take it step by step. Let's save that report because we'll actually see it. Client rating. So that's an existing report now. That should show in the webinar workspace. Right, here we are back in the workspace. Here's our report that we just made. And as I'm aware that we've crept quite a bit over 5 minutes, I'm going to show you a pipeline very quickly Again, it's just as easy as pressing new, creating pipeline. We'll accept that name whilst we're just going to have this for the demonstration. Again, remember, a pipeline is used for orchestration, to say when things are going to happen. It can be used for other things as well, but that's what we're going to do in this case, is for that orchestration. Data flow 1, data flow 2, load to Lakehouse, load to warehouse. This happens on completion. Settings, data flow SQL, and we know that's the badly named other one. Fantastic. It's as easy as that. And then what might we want at the end? We want it to pop into Outlook, and then we'd set that up. Fantastic. Right, let's head over back to the presentation where we can finish up. And so that brings us to the end of today's webinar. We've been through what the current solution for data analytics platforms have been in the past and what they are now. We've looked at what Fabric is and why it's an exciting new option for anyone looking to make use of their data. And then, of course, we finished with the demo to show you how Fabric really looks in action and just how easy it is. That really was building a working data platform, moving data from a current solution to the latest cloud data warehouse and into Power BI, ready for any other kind of transformation in just 10 minutes. In reality, of course, you'd take much more care, and I carefully edited things to make it look like it was one smooth take, which it wasn't, and hopefully you can see how much more accessible this is. That's what I'm going for here. Between that and much more cost-effective billing systems, this really does represent a very valuable new technology and opportunity. Now is a great time to get started with Microsoft Fabric. If you or your organization would like some help in using Fabric for the first time, then get in touch with us here. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope this has been a helpful session, and we'll be making it available on YouTube for anyone to view later on. But for today, this is your host Nick Hilton, signing off.